Our next speaker is no stranger to me, as we graduated from the same department of the same university. She's from a very brave company, so brave that when they discovered that their users, only 3% of their users both check-in and search places at the same time, they took the drastic move and they decided to divide their app's functionality into two different apps, Foursquare and Swarm. It's an honor to have her with us, UX designer for Foursquare, Başak Haznedaroğlu.
Hi, everyone. All right, let me grab this. Well, I am really happy and excited to be here. Thank you for having me. It feels really great to be home. This morning, I saw that there were 128 check-ins at this place. It was quite impressive. So how many of you guys use Foursquare? Swarm? All right, awesome. Well, for those of you who don't, Foursquare, we have two products. One, Swarm, which is a social product dedicated to checking into places and meeting up and keeping up with friends. And then we have Foursquare dedicated to finding and discovering new places to go. Well, today I would like to share a few principles with you for good UX. These are really critical and practical guidelines that really help me a lot in my own design journey, and I'm hoping you will find it useful as well. So let's start with being responsible. Well, as designers, we are responsible for our users. We have the power to make a change on people's lives, improve their lives. And this is obviously, we have the power to do all that, but with great power comes great responsibility, right? So we really need to identify the user's pain points, their frustrations, and really optimize the experience around them. And by the way, I started off my career in industrial design, so please bear with me when I nerd out on Donald Norman or Victor Papanek or affordances. But I really love this great example from Donald Norman. He talks about the simple everyday object that we use, pepper and salt shaker, but still we always pour it on our hand first before we pour it in the meal. And you know, design shouldn't be this complicated. It shouldn't make you memorize things like, oh, one hole was the pepper, multiple hole was the salt. So we are really responsible for our users, and we need to make the experience simple and clean for them. And we are also responsible for the content. We need to design the right channels, craft the right conversation between the content and the users. And especially for the platforms that rely heavily on user-generated content, our responsibility is not only storing this data, it's also making it accessible, it's also displaying it in useful and meaningful ways. It could be people sharing photos or their location or their reviews. Our job is providing the right tools to make it easy for them to share. Also, designing the right channels and the right conversation to respond to one another and create a feedback loop within the platform. And of course, find the right incentive for the user contribution that will lead to a deeper user engagement. We constantly think about, on Swarm, how to display the check-in data, how to make it fun and exciting and interesting. And now, instead of having a long list of seeing your friends' check-ins, now we have this neighborhood sharing, for example, neighborhood grid, where we group the check-ins by distance. So we show you your friends nearby, thinking that it might encourage you to see your friend that is nearby, that is only 2 minutes away, so you might want to meet up with that person, right? Similarly, on Foursquare, people go to places, people like places, save them for later, or leave tips and share their thoughts. So our job is really aggregating all that data and distribute back to the users in useful ways. So here, for example, you are looking for a place to go for dinner, right? So we are hoping that it would help you to see places that your friends have been, that your friends have liked, or share their thoughts about some dish, thinking it would make your decision-making easier. Or you're looking at a menu page, you're trying to decide what to order, what to eat. So instead of stressing you over reading 419 tips at this place, we group the tips relevant to you, to your tastes, to your preferences. So if we know that you like cocktails, we group all the tips about cocktails, and it's only one tap away for you. Well, let's talk about the second principle, being prepared. We spent over 20 years where the mainstream digital experience was limited to a web browser, mouse, and keyboard input methods. But now we get things done on our smartphones, on our tablets, on our smartwatches. So we really need to be prepared to think about the nature of mobile design. And of course, designing for mobile comes with constraints. It's a completely different dynamic, different ergonomics, form factors, gestural components, etc. But as designers, it's also in our hands to turn these into opportunities, not constraints. And when you're thinking about mobile design, really think about what makes you unique. Think about all the opportunities that you can take advantage of. Like, imagine all the built-in sensors. Imagine all the device capabilities, the advanced location technologies, or the instant access to people's contacts, and instant access to social graphs. So at Foursquare, we have this technology that we call Pilgrim that was not possible on desktop before. But it's based on geofencing and Wi-Fi detection. And now Pilgrim senses when you land in a new city, and without you opening your app, it creates an itinerary for your day. It collects all the popular places that locals go, or suggestions from your friends, and it's really effortless. It pulls all the data. And again, Pilgrim, it has just the right amount of data about who you are, what you like, your preferences. And again, it pulls the relevant information effortlessly and makes it available on your phone without you opening the app. And you're at a place, you're trying to find what to order. Instead of spending time on the menu, it pulls a great tip or a popular tip from your friend and tells you what to order. And again, it complements this experience on your smartwatch as well. So let's say your phone is in your pocket, but you have your smartwatch and it's always available on your wrist, so you can always jump onto that and also have a quick glance on what to order. Well, when you're thinking about these mobile experiences and transactional experiences where people are jumping from one device to another, we really need to be prepared to think holistically in an ecosystem of devices. We need to think about different operating systems. We need to think about all these different devices. So what does that mean? It means we need to be ready. We need to be prepared for the device apocalypse. I know it sounds a little scary, but at Foursquare, we try to leave the device-agnostic strategy behind and really encourage ourselves to think experiences in terms of layers. We try to see content as atomic units that come with a set of possible actions. We try to think, we always ask the question, what is the primary task that we want our users to accomplish on a particular screen? And then we try to prioritize the content, the primary actions, secondary actions, and align all this content around the circumstances that the user is in. And we also have a style guide where we keep our frequently used components, UI components, or logical patterns all together. So imagine these, think of these like Legos, like building blocks. It really helps you to design systems that can scale really gracefully, and you can always come back to this as a reference and pull the elements that you need, and whatever device you're designing for, you're good to go. And this is only a partial guide. Of course, we have the font library, the color library, more again like patterns and navigational guides. All right, let's talk about the third principle, being data-centric. Whether it's qualitative or quantitative, data really helps us. It helps us identify the behavioral patterns and understand the users even more. At Foursquare, we have a UX research group, a very small but a very ambitious team. And we do a bunch of methods. We do surveys, interviews, usability testing. This is a simple setup that we have in our office. We invite participants over. They play with our prototype. They put their phone on that little post-it. There's a camera attached to it. And while our UX researcher is going through her questions, we always take the back seat and watch them and take notes. And this is really one of the favorite parts of my job, just watching all these participants playing with the features that I design. And of course, sometimes they tap the wrong button, they get confused, they get lost, or they call some feature that you designed stupid. And it might cringe you a little, but like Luke is saying here, watching users testing your prototype can be really painful, but that's exactly why we should all watch that. Well, this is really great. Having constant testing, prototyping, and getting a lot of valuable feedback. I want to share this design snowball that we experienced in our design team when we were designing this recent feature that we rolled out, messaging. So it really started out with these small testing. Our first goal was validating our hypothesis that if we can encourage people to have conversations within these like one-on-one close groups, then these conversations might lead to actually meeting up and catching up and actually checking into places. And it first started with like little notes that we used to exchange in high school, right? And then with, again, constant feedback and testing and prototyping, validating, it started to also have like a little quick glances on a map. It was encouraging people to, have conversations when they start to see each other on a map. It was more convincing for them. And then it started to also support other content types. People were asking like, hey, what about photos? Can I also upload photos too? And then, thanks to this really iterative and testing and prototyping process, we were able to end up with this product, with this feature that evolved into a very streamlined messaging experience where multiple people can join, share their locations, and add like photos and stickers and have a fun experience. Well, also, the data in its pure form, which is numbers, is also very valuable. It can also tell you a lot of compelling stories. Well, on May 29th, 2013, one of my engineers ran to me, super excited. He was like, I'm seeing crazy check-ins at this place called Gezi Park, what's going on? And of course, I start to tell them that this is the biggest civic disobedience in Turkish history, people are protesting. And then we saw the data, like average 50 to 100 was jumping to 16,000 a day. This was really fascinating. Data was sort of forcing us to go back and dig through and really find out what people were doing. And we also start to see that people were leaving a lot of tips. People were sharing a lot of status updates. And these tips were crazy, hundreds, 2,000 tips. And they were not necessarily like the traditional tips where people were talking about the trees, the benches, the weather, but those were people sharing Wi-Fi passwords. Those were political statements. Again, people sharing the locations where police tear gassing people. So as a Turkish citizen, of course, I felt so proud that the tool that I was designing was helping my people to connect with each other. But also as a designer, I was absolutely fascinated by the fact that these tools were being reappropriated in a cultural context in a way that we haven't imagined before. And very similarly, data giving you the big picture and telling you a compelling story. Back in 2012, Hurricane Sandy hit New York really, really hard. And by looking at the check-in density data, we were able to tell that people were experiencing serious power outages and flooding in lower Manhattan. And by looking at this data, again, we were able to direct people in the right direction where there were still businesses open and operating so that they could meet their needs. But I really love looking at this as a designer because this data creates a lens for us. It makes you feel like you're looking at the city under a microscope and the city is like a living organism. So my quick note here is whether it's the qualitative, whether it's or quantitative, it really, really helps you understand the behaviors behind all these little experiences and help you make more informed design decisions. Let's also talk about being thoughtful a little. Well, we have a motto at Foursquare where we remind ourselves every day that we give a human side to the software that we are building. We make software relatable to humans. And in order to do so, we use a lot of research and knowledge about the cognitive system, about the brain, about cognition, perception, attention, what triggers certain emotions, what motivates people to do certain things. And we constantly look at these three loads that we create on users. And we always go back and try to find the right methodology to reduce each load. For visibility, for example, we have these, as a design team, we have these visibility status checkpoints where we look at the visual clarity overall. We look at our visual language to make sure that it's clean, it's easy to understand across the board. And we do a lot of A/B testing. Like here you see, we look at different image treatments. We try to tune the right gradient, the blurriness, the shadows. We constantly ask people if they can recognize certain icons. We try to see if the size is okay or the placement of those icons or the type, the fonts are placed appropriately. So we constantly do these testing and try to find the right tone. Or for the motor load, we do heuristic inspection methods where we look at the error preventions, where we look at the common use cases and how many steps they require, how much scrolling, how much tapping, and how much browsing. For example, here, if we know that one of the most popular search queries is coffee, instead of forcing the user to tap the search bar and type coffee on their keyboard, we put coffee as a high-level item that is super accessible and easily reachable up top. And if we know that people want to refine their results constantly, then we put the filter there in a very visible and on a very high level so that people can easily find these features without scrolling or trying to find it. And this is the most tricky one. We look at the cognitive load. We try to look at the experience where the fast thinking, the automatic thinking turns into more stressful, more deliberative and complex experiences. We try to see how much mental calculation is required for certain tasks. We try to see which specific brain buttons we need to push for certain tasks. And to do so, we do a lot of field studies. We try to look at people's behaviors, people's habits. I like to share our design process for our iPad. Before we design anything, before we start to sketch anything, we really wanted to do an extensive field study where we literally went to people's homes, their offices. We tried to observe how they are interacting with their tablets. We talked to them about their favorite products. We start to see how they are switching from one device to another or to even physical objects like notebooks. And then we saw that most common use cases were around people searching, trying to find places for later, for the future, for list making, for curating lists. And instead of looking for something for the now, for the moment, they were trying to find a place for a Sunday brunch or trying to find the right vacation spot for the summer. And with all that data, with all that extensive study results, we were able to design the experience around saving. So we put saving as a front-end centered experience, and we gave people the right tools to make a list, to save places, and really make it a seamless, simple experience that people can enjoy during traveling or making future plans. Well, this is really great. You make functional, usable products, but it's also important to make an emotional connection with your users. So at this moment, I like to step back and talk a little about also the delight part of the experience. Well, we really want Swarm to be fun, to be delightful, really engaging, and this is the screen when you check into certain places or when you shout out certain things, you get this sticker unlock moment. And we always wanted Swarm to have a personality. Like, we wanted Swarm to, apologize when it fucks up, or we wanted Swarm to congratulate you when you achieve something. And sometimes, in order to create this tone, this personality, we try to find the right copy with the right message. And this is really like a recipe, a pinch of smart, a little snarly, a little snarky, and you end up something like this. And people really like it. People really find it funny, and they reach out to us on Twitter. I'm hoping there are no Nickelback fans in the room, by the way. But also, how many of you guys remember badges? Before stickers, we used to have badges. Again, like a very similar mechanic. You check into certain places and you unlock them. Well, as a Brooklyn resident, my favorite badge was Brooklyn for life, or just kidding. My favorite one was obviously Bosphorus badge, because Istanbul is much cooler than Brooklyn. But I really remember unlocking that one. It was a very precious moment. I remember, like everybody was earning it, but I was still falling behind, and I finally got it, and it was so precious. But again, after one badge, 5, 10, that delight really fades away, and that experience, doesn't really feel that memorable anymore. So at that moment, we made the transition to stickers that would create more delight, more permanent delight, so that you can use in every check-in. But now we know that you guys still love badges, and it's still very dear to our hearts. So now if you go down your memory lane when you're looking at your sticker library, you can still wipe the dust, and you can get your old badges back. And this little surprise, this little moment puts a big smile on people's face. We saw that people were really happy when they found out about that. By the way, sorry for the spoiler if you guys haven't discovered that. But what I want to say here is copy is important, the message is really important, but you should also think about how to delight people with motion, with the right amount of dimensional experience, and make something memorable. All right, I would like to close it down with a more inspirational note, let me say. Well, we are really living in the golden age of design. We have, it's not really like the post-industrial 19th century where General Electric is producing all your gadgets, or Ford being responsible for all your transportation. Now we have the startup culture. Now we have small companies fighting against the giants, and they are winning. And also we have companies that are founded by designers, like Airbnb, like Pinterest, Slack. So this is really amazing. But sometimes software can still be enigmatic, or we might have a hard time explaining what we do to our parents. But we have come a long way. But even when we are designing today, we try to bring back the experiences that we are so used to, so familiar with, the experiences that we gain over the centuries. So we try to, aim for these natural user interfaces. And there's this famous saying of the US Supreme Court Justice Potter Stewart: "I can't describe pornography, but I know it when I see it." So it's really like that when you are playing with a product that, even when you're playing with it for the first time, if it's a familiar interface, if it's an intuitive product, you know what to do, and the moment your fingers and your mind is connected to it, you know what to do, you feel like you're home. So this is really great, but I would like to remind you that the first mouse back in '86 came with a 5-minute video tutorial. This is really fascinating. I would recommend you all watch that. So at some point, you should really try the unknown, the undefined, really experiment, and get your hands dirty with different technologies and novel platforms. Well, you should also inspire your organization to invest in design, right? To do so, spread the design love across your office. Use the office as your canvas. Sketch things out loud. Whenever you find a white space, just start doodling. It doesn't really matter how it looks. Just start thinking out loud. Also, don't wait until everything is pixel perfect. Try to share every stage, every part of your design, and Also, invite people to solve problems. It shouldn't be only dedicated to the designers or the design team. Really try to invite over the engineers, the PMs, and try to solve these problems with people with different backgrounds, and it will also help you position yourself in a stronger way. Well, these were just quick notes and guidelines that I put together, but it's really more about you and what really works for you, finding the right methodology. So, get your boots on, get out there, and find the right methodology that works for you. Well, now can I see the hands of the designers in the room? All right. Well, you guys also want to stand up now? Stand up, stand up, stand up. Everybody, all the designers. Give yourself a very, very strong applause. A very strong one. Yep, exactly. Because I really, really want you to know that our discipline is really equipped, is really unique to shape the conventional thinking, forecast a new future, and shape the humanity and inspire. Well, inspire now. Thank you so much. Teşekkürler.